A few years ago, I was making $25,000 to $30,000 a month with my rental business, and today I live with my dad. Same guy, two completely different realities. Back then, I had my own apartment. My girlfriend was living with me. I was on 75 hard, in the best shape of my life, and money was basically on autopilot. Now I've been through an industry crash, a six-figure betrayal, different addictions, survival mode, and I'm basically starting again from zero. My name is Sal, and this video is the honest version of how I went from making $30,000 a month to moving back home, what it did to my dating life, my mental health, my faith, my environment, and how I'm trying to rebuild. Chapter 1. The life I lost. There was a version of me that feels like a completely different person now. Like I mentioned, I was running a camera rental business, doing 5 figures a month, and I woke up in my own apartment. The sunlight was coming in, the girlfriend was cooking. We had our routines. Sometimes I would drink coffee in the morning. I'm not really that much of a coffee guy, but I would train, I would work, and I'd come back home to a home that we built. Like I said, I was in the best shape of my life doing 75 hard, and my days had structure. You know, I was dialed in. I would work hard, I would train hard, and I would just repeat. And my body showed it, my energy showed it, and my confidence showed it. When I walked into a room back then, I felt like I belonged because I knew I was doing the work. The money was growing without me trying. My body was improving, and my relationship felt solid, and the business was expanding. There was constant motion forward. Spending money didn't feel dangerous. And if I wanted to take my girl to dinner, I did. If I wanted nice groceries, I bought them. A gym membership, new clothes, small luxuries, they all matched the life that I was building. Fast forward a few years, and now I'm living with my dad, and my overhead is insanely low. But that feeling of I built this is completely gone. And right now I'm in the in-between chapter. And the lesson here is that there's a gap between who I know I can be and who I've been acting like for the last few years. Chapter 2. Like $30,000 a month, broke. The fall didn't start because I stopped caring. It started because the game changed. And for years I dominated the rentals because I adapted fast. Whenever a new camera dropped, I'd be the first one in LA to get it. I would list it, and then I would make money with it instantly. And when the new models of the cameras or the lighting ever came out, I would rotate the gear before it even tanked in value. And that was my constant upgrade cycle. And I was always on the edge of it, you know? Back then, if you wanted to shoot something serious, you basically had to rent a $30,000 Red camera or a $100,000 RE camera. People needed people like me. The economics were on my side. And then a couple years later, cameras got really cheap and really good. Suddenly, a $3,000 camera started giving clients results that were good enough. And the gap between what the pros and the regular people could own, it shrank extremely fast. And at that same time, everybody started buying equipment and listing it. The whole film industry became a rental business all of a sudden. And so overnight, the formula turned into way more supply, way softer demand, way lower prices, and way higher theft risk. Suddenly, I was doing the same amount of work, the logistics, the insurance, the pickups, the returns, but the reward shrank so much and the risk was so much higher that suddenly the $30,000 a month stopped making sense. And eventually, it just stopped in general. And the lesson from this is that my effort didn't fall off first. The business model did. And I hung on to it for way too long. Chapter 3. The decision that nuked everything. When I was feeling that squeeze, someone that I trusted showed up with a solution. This was somebody I considered like a brother, not some random online guru. Somebody that I'd watch make serious money, 6 figures a month, almost every month. And this is somebody I trusted really well in business. And you got to consider the position I was in. I was scared. The revenue had dropped from those big months to this barely works anymore. And I wanted out of that dying model fast. And that's when I made the worst decision of my life. I sold the majority of my gear. I sold my Mercedes. I gave up my apartment. Altogether, I liquidated well over 6 figures, and I invested it into this business opportunity with his word that it would be paid back. I never saw a dollar. No repayments, just excuses. All I heard was, it's coming, and we're almost there. Meanwhile, everything I had built on the other side, my inventory, my car, my independence, my home, it was all gone. That did more than hurt my net worth. It shattered my sense of judgment, and I'd always seen myself as a loyal, good-hearted friend. And suddenly I had to accept that I gave full access to someone who was willing to use that against me and walk away as if nothing. For years, that sat in my chest. Every time I thought about relationships or money or business, that one story was always in the back of my head. And the lesson of this chapter is the market took my margin, but fear and misplaced trust are what took my foundation. Chapter 4, stuck in survival mode. After that, I flipped from abundance to pure fear. I cut out everything. Gym memberships, gone. Eating out, gone. Any little extra spending, it was gone. I started to eat the cheapest food, buying the bare minimum, saying no to almost every optional expense. On the surface, it looked like discipline, but in reality, it was pure panic. I kept telling myself, this is temporary. I'll grind for a while, I'll get it back, and then I'll go right back to how I was living before. But that temporary stretched. It turned from months into a year into more, and then survival mode came about. And the crazy part is financially, I crawled into a solid place and I stacked over 50 grand, and my monthly expenses were tiny. By the numbers, I was safer than ever. I had no expenses. But my behavior still belonged to a man who was about to get evicted tomorrow. I overthought every purchase. $10 for food felt heavy. Gas to go see my friends felt irresponsible. Spending on myself felt dangerous. My reality said, you're okay. But my nervous system said, dude, you're about to die. And the lesson from this chapter is, if I don't consciously turn off survival mode, it keeps running long after the danger is gone, and quietly it shrinks my entire life. Chapter 5, addiction, numbness, amongst other things. While all that was happening, I had another enemy, an addiction. I didn't just lose money and get stoic. I lost money, I got betrayed, and then started sedating myself with a non-substance addiction. Hours and hours disappearing into a screen, into a loop that gave me stimulation and escape without progress. Then you add in the social media, the constant scrolling, the endless dopamine, the full buffet. As a man already feeling weak, that stuff is like pouring gasoline on the fire. All these addictions, they wreck you. It teaches your brain that you can have novelty, intensity, and release on demand with zero effort and zero risk. You get the chemicals of being successful, that I did something feeling, without ever doing anything in the real world. So now it all stacks up. Financially, you're okay on paper. Emotionally, you're wrecked from betrayal. And so living in paranoia and scarcity, getting my wins from fake dopamine and these fake worlds and pictures and computers and all that, I ended up taking a job as a facility manager for $2,200 a month. And I ended up getting a free office, tons of free time, and almost no oversight. You know, that was the perfect setup to build a new thing. And instead, I let the low pressure and the constant dopamine from my addictions kill any urgency that I had left. Suddenly, the days became blurred. My ambition wasn't gone, but it was buried under that cheap, constant hit of stimulation. And the lesson from this chapter is that the crash and the betrayal pushed me down, but the addiction and the endless scrolling and the endless dopamine are what kept my face in the dirt. Chapter 6, wanting a wife while hiding. All of this destroyed my dating life. It destroyed my social life. And I'm not a fling type of guy. I don't like meaningless hookups. They feel cool for a minute, then they just leave you more empty, more numb, more cynical. And I like being in real relationships. I like building with someone. I want a wife, I want multiple kids, and I want a family. I want to be able to provide and protect and build something with a woman that I can trust. And I want to come home to someone that I don't have to wonder about, not scroll through wondering who's she talking to now. And my last serious relationship ended about 3 or 4 years ago. My pattern historically has been long gaps of 3 to 4 years between real relationships. And I'm right at that window where I'm now looking. But if I'm being honest, I didn't use that gap to build a world that would attract the kind of woman that I want. I used a big chunk of that to hide. My social life shrank as my spending shrank. When every drive feels expensive, every meal feels reckless, every outing feels dangerous, you start saying no. You end up staying home. You get used to being alone. You stop getting into rooms where you might meet someone compatible at all. You don't exist to the world. All you exist is online in pixels. And meanwhile, modern women, especially in LA, are getting hit on nonstop with endless attention online. DMs, likes, matches, invitations. Every day is a fire hose of options and distractions. So here I am, saying I want a wife, saying I want kids, but living like a ghost, hiding, numbing, saving every penny, not going anywhere, not building anything exciting. It's delusional to think that that behavior would somehow lead to a partner that is worthy. And the lesson from this chapter is that my stated goal was a deep, loyal relationship and a family. My lifestyle was a single, scared guy numbing himself at home. Those two things do never cross paths. Chapter 7, walking away from safe work. For a while, that facility job became my new version of safety. I knew the tenants. I knew the operations better than anyone. I handled the uncomfortable confrontations. On paper, my purpose was clear. Help the owner make more money, keep things running smoothly, prevent him from losing tenants and revenue. But the relationship with the owner was broken from the beginning. He had actually kicked me out once before from the facility, and months went by after he kicked me out, and he came back, essentially begging me to manage the place again because I understood it better than anyone, and I wasn't afraid to be firm when that was necessary. So I came back. I gave it another shot. And for about 5 months, I did what I do. I organized, I communicated, I protected his downside. Then one day he made a decision that I knew would piss off almost every customer. It was the kind of thing that guarantees angry tenants and lost money. So I undid it. I fixed it to stop the bleeding. The next morning, I see the same harmful change being put right back into place. Except this time, he wasn't talking to me. He was giving me the silent treatment. He was only talking to his security and some of his other tenants while actively keeping me in the dark. Mind you, I'm the facility manager at this point. He was passive aggressive. He was quiet. He was avoidant. And he was acting as if I was the problem for trying to protect his business and his overall top line. And on top of that, he still owed me over $3,000 for work that I had already done, and yet somehow was acting as if I'm the one indebted to him, like he was doing me a favor. The first time around, it took a few months of that energy before he finally kicked me out. This second time around, I recognized the signs instantly. The disrespect, the lack of communication, zero trust. This time, I didn't wait to be pushed. And on July 16, 2026, I left the facility that same day. I got a U-Haul, I moved everything out, I blocked his numbers, because where there is no trust and no honor for your word, there is nothing left for you to build on. I wasn't going to cling on to safe anymore. And that paycheck from somebody who treated you like that was suddenly not worth it. Since then, multiple tenants have reached out to me complaining about how things have regressed, but that's his path now, not mine. And the lesson from this chapter is sometimes walking away from that fake sense of security and safety is the most honest thing you can do for yourself. Chapter 8, Fasting, God, and a New Calm. Right after leaving the facility, I didn't sprint into another job. I didn't scramble to plug the income hole. I went on a 3-day fast. No food, just water, my thoughts, and God. Those 3 days were about stripping things away. The noise, the numbing, the constant consumption. It was me sitting with the reality of my decisions, my pain, my patterns, and asking, who do I actually want to be from here on forward? During and after that fast, something within me shifted. I started going out more. I started showing up for myself more socially. I started saying yes to being out in the world instead of hiding. And I felt this strange combination of humility and calm confidence. I leaned into faith more than I had ever done in my life. I started believing, really believing, that God is involved in this story, not just watching it from a distance, and that I'm not alone while I'm trying to rebuild this thing. And as I became calmer on the inside, the outside started to reflect it. I developed this grounded aura that I didn't have ever in my life before. I'm a lot less frantic all of a sudden. I'm less needy all of a sudden. Less trying to prove something. When I'm out now, people, especially women, pick up on that. They don't sense desperation. They sense security. And that kind of attention I used to chase and I used to crave and I used to desire so badly. And it just suddenly started showing up on its own. Women more beautiful than I had ever thought would look my way are now suddenly showing interest. And instead of being shocked or desperate, I was steady. I was unfazed. And the irony of all that is that all those years I was chasing validation. I almost got none. And then the moment that I started truly choosing myself, choosing God, cutting off addictions, and walking away from disrespect, my energy changed. And people's responses changed with it. The lesson from this chapter is when I stopped clinging to bad situations and numbing the pain and actually sat with myself and with God, I became calmer. And that calm suddenly was what people responded to. Chapter 9, Choosing Environment over Cheap Rent. As I kept moving forward, one big question came up consistently. Where do I actually want to live? Currently, I live in Los Angeles, and I've lived in Pasadena, California. I've lived in San Gabriel, California, and I've also lived in the hood, which is where I'm currently at. Up to now, at this point, I've been paying about $500 a month to live in Watts. And I don't know if you guys have been there, but let's be honest, it's not exactly the peak expression of my life or anyone's desired life. It's rough, it's degeneracy driven, and it's not the kind of environment that naturally pulls you up. A big part of my mental energy there goes into not becoming a victim, not getting dragged into BS nonsense. And recently I started scouting for apartments online in the heart of downtown LA. And I lived in nice areas, but they weren't super social, super youthful, right? Just nice areas. And now I've been specifically looking at locations that thrive on social ambiance. And I've been looking at some good options that reflect who I am now. Single guy, has a pup, wants a vibrant social life, wants to live, wants to grow, not rot away solo in silence. The buildings I'm looking at are super lively, super social areas. Places where you walk outside and there are people, lights, energy, not just sirens and drama. Right now, the prices look somewhere around $2,000 for a studio per month or about $2,150 for a one bedroom. I'm leaning for the one bedroom. And with that in mind, That's basically a 4x jump in what I'm paying right now. But here's the trade, all right? Option 1, pay $500 a month and feel like a prisoner in my own environment. I spend my energy watching my surroundings, focused on survival and defense. Option 2, you pay 4 times as much, but you live in a place that feels alive, that drives your soul. Somewhere I can step out of my door and be in an environment that's fun, social, full of possibility, and focus on the growth instead of constantly scanning for threats. Near one of the places that I'm looking at, there's a really popular social bar, not one of those uptight, pretentious clubs, which I used to be around a lot, where you need bottle service just to exist and fake status for women who only care about money and clout. It's a place where you can actually talk, where you can actually connect, you can laugh, and you can meet people as a human being. To me, that subtle change from hiding in a cheap, dangerous neighborhood to intentionally paying more to be in a vibrant, social, growth-oriented area is massive. It lines up with the life that I say that I want. On top of that, I've found an old passion waking back up: motorcycles. And I'm still debating on pulling that trigger because I'm not naive. The risk is real and death is on the table. But even considering it is a big shift from the version of me who was too scared to spend $10 on a burger. Now, instead of letting fear make every decision, I'm asking, what kind of life do I actually want? And what are the risks that I'm actually willing to accept to live it? Financially, I'm in a place where I can even consider these moves now. My savings from this time had went up from $50,000 to about $65,000. I have that runway. And yeah, maybe down the line, I still end up in a Lamborghini like I once planned before everything crashed. Who knows? The lesson from this chapter is cheap rent in a dead, draining environment is expensive. Paying more to live in a place that allows you to become the next version of yourself is a trade that should be heavily considered. Chapter 10, my real YouTube numbers and the next chapter. All of this, the crash, the betrayal, the survival mode, the addiction, the loneliness, leaving the facility, fasting, scouting for a new place to live, leads into where I am now with my work. On January 7th, 2026, the beginning of this year, I started posting on YouTube. Since then, I've put out about 5 long-form videos and about 39 shorts. And from that small amount of content, my channel has gotten about 45,719 views, 774 hours of watch time, 115 subscribers. That's the truth. For how little I posted and how inconsistently I did it, that's actually a lot of signal. The problem wasn't that YouTube doesn't work. The problem was that I'd been too afraid and too distracted to treat it seriously. For a while, I didn't even want to open a YouTube studio. I didn't want another set of numbers to remind me I wasn't being who I knew I could be. Now, I look at those stats a little bit differently. This is the floor. This is what happens when I half show up while living in survival and hurting from betrayal and numbing from addiction and barely trying. This is what happens. If I bring out even half of the ambition that I had during those $30,000 months into this new game with the content, the systems, a new offer that fits who I am now, these numbers will not remain small. Right now, from the outside, my life looks like in between. I left the facility. I live with my dad. I'm scouting my own places downtown. I've got about $65,000 saved. My overhead is extremely low, but I'm choosing to raise it soon in the name of living and not hiding. On the inside, I remember exactly what it felt like to be that earlier version of me and exactly what it feels like to lose himself. The man that I am right now, which is somewhere in the middle. I'm humbled, I'm healing, but finally moving again in a direction that matches what I say I want. That's powerful. If you see yourself in any part of this, if you've lost money to people you trusted, if you've lost trust, if you lived in survival mode for too long, if you numbed yourself with porn or screens or social media and shrunk your life while saying you wanted something big, this is me saying you're not alone. And this is not where it has to end. And the lesson from this chapter is I can't rewrite the last few years, but I can decide that that is not going to be my final chapter. This is the middle that is messy, and I'm still writing my story. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, my name is Sal Montalvo 4K on social media, on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.